The gap between staying broke forever and building real wealth is smaller than most people realize. It comes down to about $15,000, a threshold almost nobody crosses. Nobody in the financial industry wants to tell you this truth because it does not sell complex financial products. It does not generate massive management fees, and it fundamentally shatters the pervasive myth that you need a multi-million-dollar salary, a massive inheritance, or a stroke of lottery-winning luck to escape the suffocating grip of financial mediocrity. The reality of wealth accumulation is far more mechanical, far more psychological, and far more accessible than the mainstream narrative suggests. But to understand this reality, you must first be willing to confront the brutal, unvarnished arithmetic of how money actually works and how your own mind is biologically wired to sabotage your financial freedom. I have spent decades studying the intricate, repetitive mechanics of the global economic machine, building Bridgewater Associates into a multi-billion-dollar entity, advising heads of state, and analyzing the historical patterns of empires, currencies, and markets over the last 500 years. But my understanding of wealth did not come from an unbroken string of effortless victories. It came from a devastating, humiliating, and absolute failure that completely destroyed my life. In 1982, I looked at the global macroeconomic landscape, analyzed the sovereign debt crisis, and confidently predicted an impending economic depression. I took massive, aggressive positions based on this absolute certainty, and I was dead, mathematically, disastrously wrong. The stock market did not crash. It rallied in a historic bull run, and that single miscalculation wiped me out so thoroughly that I lost everything, forcing me to let go of every single employee I had hired, leaving me so utterly broke and miserable that I had to swallow my pride and borrow $4,000 from my father just to pay my family's basic living expenses. That fall from grace was the ultimate tragedy of my early career. A deeply painful period of immense shame and financial inadequacy that forced me to radically reevaluate everything I thought I knew about risk, survival, and the fundamental building blocks of real wealth. When you are reduced to absolute zero, when your confidence is shattered and your bank account is empty, you are forced to look at the world without the blinding distortion of ego, and it was in that dark, desperate valley of financial ruin that I discovered the profound, unyielding power of the most basic financial principles and the vital importance of building a reliable system to protect yourself from your own worst instincts. I realized that the journey from being completely broke to achieving unpermissioned freedom is not a straight line. It is an agonizingly slow, incredibly frustrating, exponential curve that requires a deeply contrarian mindset to navigate successfully. When you first start trying to build wealth, when you are tracking every penny, automating your savings, and ruthlessly attempting to cut your expenses, the initial phase is psychologically excruciating because the mathematical progress feels completely insulting. You painstakingly save your first $1,000, you invest it wisely, and the compound interest yields perhaps $50 after an entire year of disciplined sacrifice. $50. It feels like a joke, a miserable reward for months of self-denial, and this is exactly where the vast majority of people surrender. They look at that tiny incremental gain, they compare it to the monumental effort they expended to achieve it, and they succumb to the overwhelming urge to quit because their linear thinking cannot comprehend the delayed, explosive power of exponential growth. This early stage is a brutal test of endurance, a period where you must survive on sheer willpower and blind faith in the arithmetic of compounding, because the external world will constantly bombard you with reasons to abandon your strategy. You will see your peers, your neighbors, and your coworkers seemingly living the dream, buying brand new cars, taking lavish vacations, and upgrading their lifestyles, and the insidious poison of envy will begin to infect your mind. You will feel a deep, burning resentment, a sense of missing out, and a profound shame that you are still driving an old car and living on a strict budget while everyone else is apparently thriving. But what you cannot see, what is hidden behind the glossy facade of their consumption, is the deadly accumulation of debt that is financing their illusion of wealth. They are not building real wealth. They are merely looking wealthy by mortgaging their future to pay for their present, a tragic mistake that has destroyed the lives of some of the most brilliant minds in history. Consider the tragic story of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, a man of unparalleled genius who earned a massive fortune through his incredible musical talent, yet died completely penniless and was buried in a common grave because he utterly failed to understand the difference between generating income and building wealth. Mozart was chronically infected with the disease of lifestyle inflation. The more money he made, the more he spent to maintain an opulent aristocratic image, ultimately trapping himself in a vicious cycle of debt and desperation that destroyed his peace of mind and his financial security. His tragedy is a stark historical warning that no amount of raw income can save you if you lack the fundamental discipline to retain it, and it perfectly illustrates the absolute necessity of reaching that critical, life-altering threshold of $15,000. Why $15,000? Because that is the exact point where the relentless, unforgiving math of compound interest begins to shift from an insulting trickle into a visible, motivating force, and more importantly, it is the exact point where a profound psychological transformation occurs within your own mind. When you finally accumulate $15,000 in liquid invested capital, you have proven to yourself that you can delay gratification, that you can conquer your own impulsive desires, and that you can execute a long-term plan despite the overwhelming temptations of the present moment. You have successfully navigated the most miserable flat portion of the exponential curve, and you have built a virtuous cycle of financial discipline that fundamentally alters your relationship with money forever. At this threshold, the interest you earn actually starts to pay for tangible, meaningful things in your life. It might cover a month of groceries, a utility bill, or a car insurance premium, and suddenly, the abstract concept of your money working for you becomes a concrete, undeniable reality. This realization breaks the paralyzing spell of linear thinking and instills a deep, unshakable confidence that you actually have the power to control your financial destiny. But crossing this threshold requires you to ruthlessly eliminate the three deadly mental errors that keep the masses trapped in perpetual poverty: impatience, envy, and self-pity. Impatience is the failure to understand that all great things, whether in nature, in business, or in personal finance, require a prolonged period of gestation and consistent, invisible growth before they yield visible results. Envy is the toxic, destructive habit of comparing your behind-the-scenes reality with everyone else's carefully curated highlight reel, a trap that forces you into taking on deadly leverage just to keep up appearances. Self-pity is the paralyzing belief that the economic system is entirely rigged against you, a dangerous narrative that, even if partially true, completely strips you of your agency and guarantees your permanent failure. Yes, the system is flawed. Yes, inflation is a hidden tax that erodes the purchasing power of the working class. And yes, the rules of the game are often skewed in favor of those who already hold capital. But acknowledging these harsh realities should not make you a victim. It should make you a fierce, uncompromising pragmatist who is determined to learn the rules of the game and use them to your advantage. To truly protect yourself and guarantee your ascent across the $15,000 threshold, you must employ the powerful mental model of inversion, a strategy championed by some of the greatest thinkers in history, which requires you to look at your goal backward. Instead of asking how to become wealthy, ask yourself how you could absolutely guarantee that you will stay broke forever. You would spend more than you earn. You would finance depreciating assets with high-interest debt. You would refuse to track your expenses. You would never invest a single dime. You would constantly compare yourself to others, and you would stop learning new skills the moment you left school. Once you have identified this precise recipe for financial ruin, your path to success becomes incredibly simple. You must aggressively, systematically avoid doing every single one of those stupid things. Avoid stupidity is often a far more effective strategy than seeking brilliance. And in the realm of personal finance, avoiding the stupidity of toxic leverage is absolutely paramount. Leverage, the act of borrowing money to amplify your purchasing power, is a double-edged sword that can generate immense wealth for sophisticated investors who understand how to manage risk. But for the average person using debt to fund a lifestyle they cannot afford, leverage is a deadly, suffocating trap that guarantees a life of anxiety and servitude. When you use leverage to buy liabilities, you are literally selling portions of your future freedom to a bank, chaining yourself to a job you might hate just to service the interest payments on things that are rapidly losing their value. This is the exact opposite of unpermissioned freedom. It is a modern form of indentured servitude, and it is a trap you must avoid at all costs if you ever hope to build real wealth. Furthermore, the avoidance of stupidity must be coupled with an absolute lifelong commitment to continuous learning. Because the economic machine is not static. It is a dynamic, constantly evolving system that relentlessly punishes ignorance and rewards adaptability. If you stop learning, if you rely solely on the skills and knowledge you acquired a decade ago, you will be swiftly left behind by the brutal march of technological progress and macroeconomic shifts. You must constantly educate yourself about the mechanics of money, the nature of markets, and the shifting tides of the global economy, because we are rapidly approaching a historical inflection point that will utterly devastate those who are unprepared. I have spent years analyzing the long-term debt cycle, a massive 75-year macroeconomic phenomenon that shapes the rise and fall of nations, currencies, and global wealth, and all the historical indicators are currently flashing red, warning us of a monumental economic shift that is incredibly likely to culminate in a severe restructuring crisis around the year 2026. We are currently in the late stages of this massive debt cycle, a period characterized by staggering, unsustainable levels of sovereign, corporate, and consumer debt, deeply entrenched inflation, and a desperate, frantic attempt by central banks to manipulate interest rates to keep the entire fragile system from collapsing under its own weight. Historically, every single time a society has reached this perilous level of indebtedness, the outcome has been the same. A painful, mandatory period of deleveraging where debts must be restructured, currencies must be devalued, and a massive transfer of wealth occurs from the unprepared masses to the educated, disciplined few who saw the crisis coming. The window of opportunity to prepare for this impending macroeconomic storm is rapidly closing. You have perhaps 12 to 24 months to get your financial house in order, to aggressively pay down your toxic debt, to automate your savings, and to cross that critical $15,000 threshold. This is no longer just a theoretical exercise in wealth building. It is an absolute survival necessity. When the deleveraging process begins in earnest, when the credit markets freeze, when unemployment spikes, and when the illusion of prosperity is violently shattered, those who are living paycheck to paycheck, burdened by leverage and devoid of any liquid savings, will be absolutely crushed. They will lose their homes, they will lose their assets, and they will be at the complete mercy of a chaotic, unforgiving economic restructuring. But those who have disciplined themselves, those who have conquered their impatience and envy, and those who have built that solid, unshakable foundation of $15,000 and beyond, will not only survive the crisis, they will be in a prime position to capitalize on the incredible opportunities that always emerge from the ashes of a financial panic. You will have the ultimate power, the power of liquidity, the power of patience, and the profound unpermissioned freedom to make choices based on logic and opportunity rather than desperation and fear. The mathematical reality of your future is entirely in your hands right now, but the clock is ticking, and the economic machine does not care about your excuses, your complaints, or your feelings of inadequacy. It only respects the cold, hard arithmetic of compounding, the disciplined application of sound principles, and the relentless avoidance of catastrophic errors. You must look at your current financial situation with absolute, unflinching honesty. recognizing that every dollar you waste on trying to impress people who do not care about you is a dollar stolen from your own future freedom. You must break the cycle of linear thinking, embrace the delayed gratification of the exponential curve, and commit to the painful, frustrating, but ultimately liberating process of building your wealth brick by invisible brick. The journey from $0 to $15,000 is the hardest, most grueling financial battle you will ever fight, but it is the battle that will define the rest of your life. Start now, save something, avoid stupidity, keep learning, be patient. The choice is yours. Follow the principles or follow the crowd. Build real wealth or look wealthy.